I got.
Welcome to Jets Rewind. I'm Marty Schupak in Valley Cottage, New York, and my two close friends, Ray Clifford in Marysville, Ohio, Ralph Schrager in Belmont, Mass, are joining me. Ray, how you doing out there in Ohio?
Not bad. Been a heat wave coming through here, but we might get some relief tonight.
Oh, well, you can keep it. Don't send it over here.
Boy, it was in the upper 90s the last few days.
Really?
Yeah.
Same thing
Uh,
in New York. It's kind of hot. How about you, Ralph? What's going on in Boston?
It's probably the warmest day of the week, but I wouldn't. It's not in the 90s, though.
Right. Anyway, I sent you a little agenda. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah, I just got it hot off
Good.
the presses, and
There you go.
I'm scrambling to get the answers to your questions.
Yeah, well, there's no real questions, but anyway, with a question mark. But a little house cleaning. We're recording this at 12:30 right now, Wednesday, August 28th, and it's important because as of 12 o'clock, the Jets are allowed to sign players to their practice squad. Ralph had a scoop that the first player they signed was Jake Hansen, the guard, who I happen to like a little bit. So we'll try to keep everyone informed. We'll keep refreshing our iPhones and whatever, but just a couple of different things. As it's old news, but the Jets traded Brandon Corrington and
Yeah.
Codrington, a 2026 Jets seventh round pick to the Bills for their 2026 sixth round pick. And
Our future is set.
but I think we all agree that we're not crazy about seeing this guy twice a year. That's what happens when you trade in your own division. But we'll have to see if this guy's a real deal. I know Ralph did a deep dive into some of his returns in college, and you like what you saw.
I do like it, and you know, a seventh to a sixth 2 years down the road is basically nothing.
Right.
Obviously, he would not have gotten through waivers, but Buffalo was a late waiver pick, so I don't know if he would have gotten to them. Yeah, I'm not. I don't like. You know, it's just like every time I see Frankie Louvu, it drives me crazy. I really like that guy every time I play with the Jets, and it's like.
Ray, it looks like they're putting all their eggs in, I guess, Gibson and Malachi Corley as far as return games, don't you think?
Yeah. I think that was part of the reasoning behind it was they didn't really have much else for Codrington as far as what they can use him for. I don't think he'd have been much more than a return guy for us, but I liked him. I would have liked to seen it, but I didn't. The more I thought about it, the less I thought he was going to stick. Where Gibson's obviously part of the offense, Corley's part of the offense too. He wasn't gonna bump them. So
hey, let me ask you something. Last year, after Gibson's great return in the Buffalo game, I mean, what was the rest of it? I can't even remember what the rest of his return season was like. Was it anything
Not spectacular.
no,
A couple of
he had a
balls.
couple.
He bobbled. I wasn't crazy about.
Yeah.
He is explosive, and I thought they should have. Again, we were playing without a quarterback. I would have liked to see him get more chances at receiver.
Yeah, I think he'll do fine at receiver. It looks like Rodgers is using him a lot in these scrimmages. But I'm just thinking in the return game, was that just a Mike Battle thing, or is this guy a good returner?
Yeah, I think he's pretty good. Again, this year is an interesting year with the new return rules too. And
yeah, they could also throw Isaiah Davis back on kickoffs. I saw them try him, and he'd be okay. Yeah.
A couple of other things that Dalvin Cook, for all you Dalvin Cook fans, he's signed with the Dallas Cowboys, and a couple of other things not Jet related came over the wire. This seems a little odd. Maybe Ralph will confirm it. I got something that said the Colts cut their fifth, sixth, and seventh round picks. So if that's true,
I didn't see that. No.
Chris Ballard, that's a rough time for him. So we'll have to see.
Well, it is a rough time, but you can give him credit.
Right.
Well, some people hold on to their late round picks too long. So
correct. So if he's admitting the mistake early, that's good.
I don't remember who the team was, but I remember seeing a headline on somebody. I think it might have been Washington. They said of their 8.
Yeah,
picks,
last year.
5 of them already.
Right. I think it's more than that. I think there's one left. mean, it sounds like the Idzik year, you know.
Yeah.
Although I still think Jachai Polite is the winner. Early third round pick who doesn't even make it through training camp.
Incredible.
Yeah, that one kills me because who I wanted him to take was still there.
Yeah. Ray, you might find this interesting. Again, it's not confirmed. It's something came to me over the wires that the Cleveland Browns kept 4 quarterbacks,
They
which
did.
it's interesting because the Jets kept 2, which we'll get into in a minute. The other thing I want to mention, and I said that the Jets will be signing practice squad players today. Ralph came to us with the Jake Hansen news. The way it works is they could sign 16 players to the practice squad, and there are different rules that if a guy's returning, they have can only carry a certain amount of guys that have 2 or more years. I think it might be 6, but I'm not sure. And the Jets are holding the 10th spot on the waiver wire, and that's based on last year's record, and they stick to that spot up to week 4 of the regular season. Then it reverts to the NFL, their records. So with that said, I just want to get right to the roster too, and I want to ask you each if there was a positive surprise from the cuts yesterday and a disappointing negative surprise. So I'll start with Ralph. Go ahead, Ralph.
I would say, positive definitely. Braden McGregor and Leonard Taylor. I mean, I'm not as big on Watts as they seem to be, but I'm glad they're stocking up on young players. And thinking a little more toward the future. I personally think Taylor, with Fotu actually on the IR,
Right.
I think he's going to be in the rotation, Taylor, and I don't know if Fotu will get his job back by the time he gets back.
Ralph, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
They're keeping 11 defensive linemen, right?
Is it 11 they have now, or does that count Reddick?
Well, that Reddick is part of my question. Let me just see defensive.
He doesn't count unless he's on the team. Like he's holding out, he doesn't count against the 53 yet.
Oh, yeah, okay, right. I'm sorry. There are 10 defensive linemen.
They kept 10 last year, so that's not unusual.
Right. Okay.
But if Reddick comes back, I would assume Watson's going to drop.
I agree. Go ahead, Ralph. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that's on the positive side. On the negative side, I mean, Jason Brownlee. I don't know if he'll last there, but he just obviously I thought it was going to be between him and Charles. I didn't think they'd keep both of them, and I thought Charles would be the one because he's a good special teams guy.
Right.
So I'm not crazy about Brownlee. I wish they had kept Brandon Smith. I didn't expect them to because I don't think they're going to take a chance on a guy that they don't know as well. But
were you surprised? And I'm sure it's going to change. Right now, they have 2 tight ends. Did that surprise you?
No, I wasn't surprised because Ebola, is hurt, and I don't know, but there's a lot of tight ends who've just been cut. I saw a whole list of them. I can't even I'm not going to be able to remember, but I think they're going to get somebody outside the team, I think, for the third tight end.
Okay, Ray, how about you? Any big surprises or big disappointments from the cut list?
I wouldn't say any big surprises. I'm definitely happy Taylor stuck. But we'll see what happens, when like you said, Fotu and Reddick come back and guys like that can change everything, or who they might want to pick up off a waiver wire can change things too. The first week practice squad probably isn't going to be what it'll look like in another week or so. As far as disappointed, I mean, I wasn't super disappointed by any of them. I would have liked to seen them keep either Smith or Codrington, or even you said about the 2 tight ends. I liked Fursker. He seemed to make a few plays, and I liked he was a big guy. I
Was he a big guy? I thought he was a small guy.
I didn't think he was that big, Ray.
I don't know. On the replay, I was watching lumbering down the sideline. He looked pretty big to me, but maybe I didn't look up his size, but he didn't look like
he's like about 6'2".
He didn't look like
yeah.
He didn't look like
the other guy, Sefcik made a nice play or 2 also. Uh,
And to
Right.
me, like Zach Kuntz is long and thin, Sperkster looked more like a.
Right.
they all look better than Coons. Coons is
Right.
he doesn't have
I'll,
anything.
I'll give you my, I'm gonna start, and I might disappoint some Jet fans. I'm gonna start with, my biggest disappointment. I don't care that he had a great last game. Izzy Abandoconda, I don't want him on the team. He's taken up a spot. He did run hard in the preseason, but I was looking at some stats. Last year, he had 3 chances to pick up blitzes, and he was 0 for 3. And I didn't like the way he ran last year. I just don't want to put all my eggs in how he looked this year. Look, if he does well, I'll be happy, and I'll admit I'm wrong. But I, I I really didn't want him. I didn't want to have 3 running backs. I'd rather have an extra running back on the practice squad if they're going to carry 2 than carry 3. So that's it on that. As far as the uh, positives, I like the way like he kept the 3 undrafted free agents on the defense. I think that, of course it's like giving himself like a medal in a way, but still, I like those guys like Brady McGregor, Leonard Taylor, and of course Tack McKinley. And I think we're all not as high as other people on Eric Watts, but it seems that if they exposed him, I heard some other people saying that he might have been picked up. So the positives are I have high hopes for these 3 guys, 2 rookies and the veteran, and I'm really hoping too. And just to add this, that uh, what's his name signs like Monday or Tuesday next week.
Reddick, yeah.
Reddick, just so he can get in. I really think we need him. And the other question I have, I told you, I'm not big on Carter Warren. He didn't show me anything in the preseason. Some people I heard say he did, but he didn't. I'm very happy that they kept Xavier Newman. To me, he was one of the best Jets in the preseason. Uh, my own mantra is you can never have enough offensive linemen. So that's the way I'm kind of looking at it too. I'm not in love, and I guess they're going to let his contract run out with Brandon Eccles. I never was. Uh, I look, they kept him on the team. I guess we didn't have anything else in the cornerback or secondary that was worthwhile keeping over him. I don't know if you guys saw any cornerbacks you thought that could do as good as Brandon Eccles. I don't know. I know Ralph mentioned last show, he had some rough penalties. He's got a history of that. So that's my take on it so far. I want to start with
All right, let me just a couple of things that you said I want to talk about. Izzy, that touchdown run, I mean, it wasn't bad, but to me, that was more bad tackling.
That's
That
what I
was,
said last
it
time.
was,
Yeah.
it would look like they were playing flag football, the Giants. It was
Yeah,
pathetic.
it was horrible. 2 tackles. I mean, one guy like
They didn't
spun
even.
around. It was
They
awful.
didn't even. I think Izzy was as surprised as anyone that he didn't go down, and he goes, "Oh shit, I'm going to take this off right now." Yeah, I forgot about Tack McKinley. I guess I should say I'm really happy that the guy's there, but frankly, they had no choice. I mean, if you think about it, from last year at the beginning of the season, they had Carl Lawson, Huff, and John Franklin Myers, and they only replaced one with one, which was Reddick, and he's not there. So they were really down on defensive ends. They really only had 3: Clemens, McDonald, and Johnson. So they needed a couple more. So there was no question that McKinley was going to make the team. I think
Ralph,
he's good.
I just want to say about him, you're 100% right. And he was outstanding. And I'm going to say, even go further. He could have played about half as well as he played. I think they would have kept him.
Definitely.
Because of
And the guy has talent. I don't know what it was. Obviously, he had some personal issues when you hear him talking. But the guy had talent. I mean, if you look at his UCLA numbers and the film of him, he was a good football player. And in his first 2 years, he was pretty good. So he has made me little less worried about Reddick. Obviously, I want Reddick. You want talent. But I'm not gonna lose any sleep over it now with between him and even McGregor, who I think will grow as the season goes on.
Yep. And Ralph, it's funny, Tack McKinley, you know how many teams he's played for?
Well, I know he's had a cup of coffee with about 5 or something like that.
7.
7.
7 teams, yeah. So no, I got high hopes for him too. I'm not crazy about his dance he puts on sometimes on the field.
Right, but at least he's got passion. So he'll be a new Mark Gastineau, right?
Right, right. And I'm sure, I'm guessing Ray, he's on a 1-year contract. And at this point in his career, he's probably looking for that final contract. So, I always go by the old, one of my favorite managers, Earl Weaver, who said, give me 25 players with 1-year contracts. I'll win the pennant every year.
Yeah.
I think that's true. So, Ray, what's your thoughts on Tack McKinley?
I mean, he's shown that he's got, the talent to do it, but, you wonder, who's the odd man out. I don't think it's him if and when Reddick comes back or Fotu comes back. I don't think he's the odd man out, but you never know. I mean, he's got to show it now. What he did in the preseason, I take all of this with a huge grain of salt, because it's they hardly played any starters. Anybody hardly played any starters for very long in these games, so it's hard to really say how they'll be. But at least with McKinley, what he's done with other teams and what he's able to do. So I like him. I'm glad he's there. I hope he pans out. But any of these guys who like undrafted free agents or a bit of journeyman, I just hope it's something that they got in a system that with solid system that they flourish in it, and some do. And so let's see if that was the case with Bryce Huff too. That's we'll see what he does in Philly. Whether people will be griping about that at the end of the year or not, but
yeah, Ralph, just to mention, Ray, that the Dallas Cowboys cut Carl Lawson.
Yeah, I saw that.
So there's a guy, I guess,
Boy.
he was a great preseason player.
The only guy he ever beat was Becton when he was on the Jets. Yeah, he killed him in preseason. Everyone thought Lawson was great, but it was just that Becton wasn't very good.
That's right. Yeah. So, we wish him luck. He's
a nice guy.
He's a good guy, had some talent, but we'll see what happens. Ralph, is there any player position from the waiver wire that you saw, and it could be Carl Lawson, that you think the Jets may claim? Even could be a quarterback. Everyone, all these Jet fans coming out of woodwork. Mike White.
I don't want Mike White.
And Bailey Zappi was released by the.
Yeah, I know. I don't want either of those guys.
Buffalo, so we haven't got to worry about the Mike White.
No, Mike White. He's thin and he's immobile. He's just going to get broken in half again. That guy is too injury susceptible. Bailey Zappi, I don't want him either. He's undersized. He doesn't have a strong arm. He's got some moxie. I don't know that the Jets are going to re-sign either of these quarterbacks. I think they will, but I guess it depends on what else is out there. I think not specific players, but I think wide receiver and tight end, there's a lot of them out there. And I think they're going to grab a couple of those guys off of other teams. And I hope they bring Brandon Smith back.
I hope so too. Brandon Smith, Ray, and I want your opinion on the waiver wire, any positional players. Or Brandon Smith, as usual, Ralph has me falling in love with these players. He was like 4 for 4 in contested catches, and that's why I like him over Jason Brownlee, who would make a nice catch once in a while, but contesting catches, he was lousy. So, Ray, are there any position or players you would look at for the Jets to pick up, or you think they're going to stay in-house?
No, I wouldn't. I think they're scanning through the wire and waiver wires. I mean, I would like to see him bring Martinez back as opposed to Peasley, but if they brought Peasley, I'd be fine. I think they need to have a third quarterback locked up, even if it's just on the practice squad. Arizona cut Desmond Ridder, who I know hasn't really shown a lot, but
it's a lot more than those two guys.
Yeah,
though.
yeah, that would be somebody to think about if they can get him over there. So that's the main thing. I'd like to see him. You said Hanson. They signed Hanson.
Yeah.
To squad.
You signed him, yeah.
Okay,
Who I
so
like.
yeah, I wouldn't mind a couple more linemen on either side.
Right.
But
While we're doing that, I put in a question I added. I don't know if you saw. I wanted each of us, and we're probably going to overlap, to pick our top 3 players that were cut, who we want them to sign to the practice squad. So I'm going to start. I actually have 4 players for 3 positions as usual, but I really want them to re-sign Adrian Martinez. I think it's not even close if it's between him and Peasley. Not that Adrian Martinez is a superstar or whatever, but he showed me enough, even though he was horrible the second game. I love the possible upside. I love his athleticism. And I'll tell you, if they sign him, and with the rules now where you could have a third quarterback on the sideline for emergencies or maybe activate, I would put in like a 2 to 4 play wildcat package if our other coach Aaron Rodgers gives us permission. But I would love to do that with him because, as Ralph knows, Brad Smith was he was one of my favorite all-time Jets. So
All right, we got a hot breaking news here. Brandon Smith signed by the Jets to the practice squad.
that's my next name. Great, Brandon Smith, the wide receiver who I guess was a Dallas undrafted free agent, went to Arizona. As Ralph said, the knock on him was the 40 time, but all he does is catch the ball. So I love that guy. Oh, that's great news, Ralph. Thanks for that news. So that's my second.
We got more here. Brendan Bates, tight end from the Bears, has been signed by the Jets.
Okay, there you go. So I don't know much about him. Who's that?
No, Brendan Bates from the Bears. I don't know much about him either.
When you guys are giving yours, I'll try to do a quick dive into this guy. And the third player, I have one of these 2 offensive linemen, which I don't know if they're gonna could do both now, especially after signing Hanson. But I put Brady Latham, who wasn't that good. He's an offensive guard, but what I like about him when they signed him is that he played like 49 games for Arkansas. I love guys that play a lot of college games, especially now when a lot of these guys are coming out early. But I like Brady Latham. And another player who's from Hawaii, Cole Leveu.
Okay, Marty, I'm going to stop you right there. Cole Leveu has just signed with the Jets, their practice squad.
Great. Oh, that's great.
They've also signed Valladay, the running back.
Good.
And Jalen Key.
Good. I was going to bring up Jalen Key's name. I'm glad. I wanted them to sign him. They're Mr. Relevant. So I asked you for 3. I gave 4, and one of them, actually 2 of them, they signed. That was pretty lucky.
Hot off the presses. How about that, Marty? He's in real time. He's
there you go.
Yeah.
All right, Ray, why don't you go, and then Ralph's going to follow. Do you have any favorites? And you could repeat the guys they signed if that was on your list.
one of them was Smith. Martinez, I wanted them to sign, but I think he will sign somewhere. I don't know if it'll be with us, but I think he showed enough. Somebody will be interested in him. And I know you guys probably wouldn't be as big on this one as, but I'm looking through those. I'm thinking to myself, none of these guys to me sound like, God, we need to get this guy in the practice squad, including who I'm about to say. I'd like to see him bring back Tanzel Smart. So just for more depth, and see how things go on the line, and at least we know what he can do and what he does, in the system. So if these guys don't pan out after the first few weeks, maybe he could be bumped up and, keep moving on the defense.
Okay, Ralph, how about you?
Well, but obviously Brandon Smith, so they got him. I want Tanzel Smart to be honest. Tanzel Smart is, I mean, he's got a family. This is his livelihood actually, and I think he's just part of the Jets family. So I also would like to see them bring back Jalen Holmes, because I think Jalen Holmes can play in the NFL.
Good pick, Ralph. I like him too. Yeah.
And I guess Martinez, I could go either way on the quarterbacks. I mean, I think no matter who they get, well, right there when you mentioned Desmond Ridder, I'd take him over Martinez. But I could see a team putting him on a 53,
yeah,
as a backup. But I have a feeling there are going to be good options other than Martinez or Peasley, but between those two, I'd go with Martinez too. He's got more upside. And Marty, I'm not a big Wildcat package guy like you are. I know you're obsessed with doing those Wildcat things, but yeah, because I know you see Martinez, you think of Brad Smith, and it's
Right.
possible. Yeah, it's possible that they could do something like that.
Yeah, I love that too. And I'm gonna try to give the Jet fans and you guys a little bit on Brandon Bates. I just did a search. The guy the Jets just signed off the Bears. He's 6'5", 255 from Kentucky. And he played in 55 games. He's one of these 6-year players with the COVID. But it sounds to me like he's more or less a blocking tight end because like in 6 years, he had 26 receptions.
But it says here he caught 6 passes for 100 yards in preseason this year. So,
Oh, okay, good.
yeah.
That's good. Okay. So he's got some size or whatever, and there could be a tie-in somewhere with the Jets, but it's always interesting because it's never 100% that players re-sign with the same team. But if I was to put a number, Ray and Ralph, I would say like, the players that end up on the practice squad right after the cut day is about 80 to 90% of their own players. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, it's high. I mean, obviously, you've worked with the guys, it's like the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. And, it makes sense. I saw these 2 interesting quotes. One was from Salah, who said, we'd like to keep our own people. We'll keep an eye out, but we got to keep our own people. And then the assistant general manager of the Giants, what's his name? Brendan Brown or something like that. His line was, we're always on the lookout for other guys. And then he uses examples, about 3 of them, one of them being Jason Pinnock. And, the thing is, I think one of the reasons that the Jets made sure that McGregor, Taylor, and even Watts were not out there because the Giants just got a big eye full of those 3 guys, and the Giants probably would have grabbed at least one of them.
Right. I think we temporarily lost Ray. I don't know if I deleted him from this.
Well, speaking of which, the Anthony Fursker is not a big tight end. He's 6'2", 245. This guy Bates, I want to look into this guy more because I think they need a 3rd tight end. I'm not a big Yeboah fan. I think, he's been, how many years has he been around Yeboah? 2 or 3?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, he hasn't really shown anything. Have you seen anything from him that you think he's worth
Well,
being
just
on the
the final
roster?
preseason game 2 years ago.
Yeah, against the Giants.
Against the Giants.
Yeah. Yeah, Mims had a moment in the preseason too, but
Right.
that didn't kind
Yeah.
of.
So, Ralph, I want to ask you this, while we're waiting for Ray to get back on. In today's NFL, do you think it's worth having one roster spot for a special teams player that's not a kicker or a punter? And I have that
Don't forget long snapper. You have to have one of those too.
long snapper. Do you think is it worth it to?
No, I don't. You want a guy who can, contribute in other ways. Obviously, if you got a 6th wide receiver or a 10th defensive lineman, they're not going to be needed very much. Special teams is really going to be their specialty. I think Michael Clemens is a guy who's probably going to hang around because he's pretty good on special teams.
Right.
Obviously, Irv Charles is going to make a living doing that. So I think it's inevitable that these guys who are at the end of the roster, there really only are special teams guys when you come down to it.
Our special team coaches, welcome back, Ray. I don't know if I deleted you or what.
No, I think my computer literally took a dump.
Oh, okay.
I'm on my phone now.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah, there you go. It's funny, Ray. You're better looking now on your phone. I had asked Ray, I had asked Ralph, the question is, do you think having a roster spot for a special teams player besides a kicker, punter, and long snapper, is it worth having one spot?
Not to me. I don't, that, I think that's why Codrington didn't make it. I mean, if all he's going to be is a kick returner, I think we have guys who can do good enough take over those duties, which is what I think happened. That's what I was saying. I don't think he's going to bump anybody to get much time on the field other than on kick and punt
Right.
returns.
Yeah.
I like him as a returner, but I don't think that's worth using somebody else up, maybe a lineman or something like that, or one of our receivers on that.
I agree, and this isn't a show to knock Irv Charles. Look, the guy's made it this far, but I just think it's just a wasted spot right now. But it should be interesting to see. Ray, were you off the air that we were talking about Brendan Bates, the tight end?
You had just started talking about him.
Yeah, just so you know, I don't want to repeat everything, but Ralph brought out that he did catch 6 passes in the preseason
For 100 yards. That's
which is
not
good.
bad.
Which is good.
I did look him up real quick. Actually, Ralph mentioned his size. And he's 6'5", 250. Is he built like Zach Kuntz, that type of guy? Because it's funny because I looked up Firkster after we were talking about him. He's only 6'2", but he's about 252.
Right.
So,
Ralph mentioned that. Yeah. We'll see. Let's see what happens. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised with the Yeboah on the injured reserve that somehow they maneuver with the 53-man roster before the start of the season, but we'll have to see. All right, here's a question for you guys, okay? Let's see if I can word it correctly. Okay. Think in terms of 20 points a game. There are 17 games in the season. Is the Jets defense going to hold teams under 20 points for more games than the Jets offense scores over 20 points? And this is going to lead to a second question. Do you understand the question?
yeah.
Yeah, I guess I do. It's fairly easy.
So, okay, Ralph, why don't you start? Because Ralph has a very good listening comprehension, so he could take the ball.
Now you're really putting pressure on me. I would say yes. That's interesting. I saw an interesting stat the other day, Marty, like about that with Aaron Rodgers' lifetime record.
I was going to ask.
Oh, yeah.
Damian Woody. I'll let you do that after you do this question. I saw that. That was my next one.
Well, I don't have the exact number, so you should probably do it.
I got the exact number, but go ahead, Ralph.
So I would say, yeah, probably. I think it'll be close. 20 points is, yeah, I'd say yes. They'll score 20 more than they'll give up. Well, wait a minute. They'll score 20, give up under 20. We better ask that question again. I think.
Okay. Okay. Think of 20 points. How many games in 17 games will the Jets hold an opponent to under 20 points? And how many games will the Jets offense score over 20 points? So what I'm asking is,
I see.
We're going to have more. Now, we could have a season where it's 17 games, but just have a little fun with it. It's really asking, what do you think is going to be better, the offense or defense, in a way?
Yeah.
The question, who's going to be more successful in the 20-point curve, let's say?
I think I'll go with the offense because I think.
Wow.
Because, well, it's not because I don't think the defense is good. It's just that I think 20 points in the NFL in this day and age, although scoring has gone down the last few years. I know that's a tough question, Marty. I'm going to say tie.
You can't. It's 17 games.
Oh,
We'll say 9 games offense, 8 for defense. How about you, Ray?
Yeah, until you started doing that, I thought you just meant in general through the year, not offense versus who was going to do more. I think our offense, it is going to be close, I think, because I think our defense is going to be better in some ways because they aren't going to be on the field all day, which will help. But I do think this offense, if as long as the line holds up, I think the offense is going to be pretty dynamic compared to what we've seen the last 4 or 5 years. But So I'm going to say the offense maybe
9-8, 10-7.
no 10-7.
I'm going to go the opposite, Ray and Ralph. I'm going to say defense 10-7. I think that it is, we can knock Robert Saleh. I'm going to talk about him right after this, or after the second part of the question. But he somehow puts together a defense where the defensive linemen seem to thrive. And if they're good on another team, they'll be very good with the Jets. So I think they're going to do a great job. And I think the fact that the defense is going to do a great job. Well, I mean, I'm sorry, the offense is going to have to sustain drives, is going to help the defense. I think the defense is going to have more games under 20 points than the offense is going to score over 20 points. Though the offense, they could go, score over 20 points, 17 games. Now, this is going to segue into the second part of the question, which I want to give credit to the great tackle Damian Woody, who I heard it from. Aaron Rodgers, what is his lifetime record if the defense holds opponents 20 points or less? Okay? So what is Aaron Rodgers' record holding opponents 20 points or less? And do you want me to give you the total number of games to make it?
Yeah.
Total number of games is 91. So I'll start with Ralph. What's
Now
the
start with Ray, because I kind of know what the answer is.
okay?
Pretty
Go ahead,
close.
Ray. His record, 91 games, teams he played on holding the defense for 20 points or less. What was his record?
Maybe 55 and whatever the difference is.
Okay. All right. You want me to say it, Ralph, or you want to?
Well, I think it's something like 81-10.
81 and 10, which is
Wow.
unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
It's just an incredible stat. So, everything is gearing to a wonderful season. But if Ralph says, I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid till I see it. And
Okay.
I'll know after the second or third game how the season's going to go.
Man, not necessarily. It's such a long year that.
Yeah, I'll know, Ralph. Marty knows, believe me. I know. All right. I want to mention before we close out, and you guys could add anything else. I want to give kudos to Robert Saleh. I've been on his back since the day he came in here. A lot of things I didn't like what he did. I couldn't stand the fact that he was texting Joe Benigno. He had time to do that.
Yeah, that was really.
It was so immature. I didn't like the way he handles the press a lot. But I'll say this: I've heard a number of players say this, multiple players, that this is the toughest camp they've ever been at. I think he hardened up a bit. I think he ran a very, very good camp, and just like Bill Parcells did, a guy goes off sides, he put in a punishment, which is a combination of a physical punishment and embarrassment punishment if a guy jumped off sides. I liked what I saw. And I'll add too, and I mentioned it to, I think, Ray yesterday, Ralph, that I love the fact, as I was constantly trying to refresh and find out the cuts, and I see all these teams, the NFL 31 are making cuts, but at 11:30 in the morning, the Jets didn't make, or they made one cut, Johnson, the tight end, but the team is practicing on the field, and it was a rough day. I love that fact that he was practicing the last second before they made the cuts. I'm sure he was in constant communication with Joe Douglas.
Well, some of the guys who were cut weren't at practice yesterday. Someone, I think Connor Hughes, had a list of guys who weren't at practice and saying, I don't know what you want to read into it, but guys like Codrington and Brandon Smith.
Right.
So, but yeah.
I still like the way he handled this training camp. Okay, I really do. Ray,
yeah, okay.
Issue. Go ahead, Ralph.
No, I agree. Obviously this is fourth year, so he's learning as he's going along. I don't know if Ray wants to comment on this, because there's something else I wanted to bring up about Bill Belichick. I saw an interview with him. You want to talk about Saleh, Ray?
Well, I am happier with this training camp. I think Rodgers has a lot to do with that too. I think Rodgers brings a little bit of an intensity because he knows that he hasn't got a lot of time. He doesn't know what's left. He wants to win. And so you saw early in camp, he was getting into it with Wilson and a couple of the guys. And I like that. I like them challenging each other. And I don't think it ever got, even though the press kind of, I think, blew it out of proportion a little bit. I don't think it was ever anything where they were getting personal or they were mad at each other, but they were definitely, him and Wilson especially had a couple of really heated conversations on the sideline. But I was like, that's how you iron things out. That's how you work out the problems. So I did like that. Codrington not practicing. I think they were already working on that trade with Buffalo. I think that's why he didn't practice. But other than that, I think the only way to be prepared for a season is go at it a little hard in the preseason. And I think that was Solid's problem before. I think a lot of the injuries were because he was too soft on them heading into the season. And so they got into a game and all of a sudden they're getting hit at full speed and they aren't ready for it. So I like it. I think it's going to make a difference. And I'm looking forward to the offense and especially the offense.
Right. And Ray, I'll add that if you look at the other teams, the NFL, some of the preseason injuries are incredible. And the Jets, I don't want to jinx them, but they actually came out of it in pretty good position, besides Yeboah and the other guy going on the injury reserve.
Well, I think part of the thinking behind having a tougher training camp was he knew he was going to do that, and he wasn't going to play his players in the games. And he
Right.
said at one point when they were asking about them, he said, he hadn't talked to Dave Alli yet about whether he was going to run his starters. He said, but what's the point of me putting my starting offensive line out there if he doesn't have Dexter Lawrence and Thibodeau and those guys out there? There's no point.
Right. Plus, they were in a scrimmage 2 days before.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
Which is all ones against ones, and
well, let's face it, they'd only be in there for 1 or 2 series anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Half a game or anything.
And he said, as far as the scrimmages go, when I watch the scrimmages, obviously they're not for the most part tackling like the running backs. So I don't think they get a real game feel. But he said the linemen, because he was asked about their offensive line not playing together. He said in the scrimmages, the lines are doing what they're doing in the games. They're blocking and
Correct.
each other. So that's very valuable. It's just as good as being in game, better because they're going against the other team's ones.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I agree. Ralph, you wanted to go into
Yeah, I saw Belichick. Belichick's a regular now on Pat whatever his name is, McAfee's show. I don't know how McAfee gets these guys. But he asked him specifically about how he dealt with players who wanted to renegotiate their contract. And I was obviously interested in hearing that in regards to Reddick. And he said, first of all, if a guy and guys did come up to me and they had 2 years left in their contract, I said, go away. That's not going to happen because I'll have the whole team lined up if I do that with you. He said, with guys who outplayed their contracts, and they still had a year left. And he said he did this with Gronkowski and Edelman. He said, come into camp, start working out. We'll figure something out. And it would usually be incentives. And they did. And obviously they were more familiar with him, whereas Reddick's not. But, I think it's so funny that the Jets are playing the 49ers. And these are the two teams that really are having big problems with these players opening game. I was going to say, it isn't just Reddick because the 49ers, I think Ayuk is in camp, but he's not playing or participating. Williams is not. Belichick said that when he was talking about Trent Williams, he said he did the same thing with the Redskins. He said, I'm sure he's going to sign by the first or second week. Reddick is I don't know if this is, obviously, even though you have an agent, you have the final say.
Correct.
So I put it on him, but I guess the agent, I'm sure, is encouraging him to do this too.
Sign it, darn, or just show up. Let's get this thing going.
He'd be out of his mind to sit it out. I mean, he just everything would go against him.
Yeah, Ray, did you want to add to that? I just got a scouting report on Brendan Bates. I hate to read, it's a little long, but I'll read part of it from Zach Rosenblatt. I guess he writes for The Athletic. He covers the Jets. But before I do that, Ray, did you want to add anything about what Ralph said?
No, I mean, I'm okay with how they handled it. I wouldn't mind seeing them, do some of those things to get like Reddick in or things. But right now, I'm happier with this camp than I've been in a while. So I'm just
Right.
gonna hope it transfers onto the season.
Right. Okay. Here, Brendan Bates, who we just picked up from the Bears, lining up primarily in line. He was a running, blocking tight end for the Wildcats. That's Kentucky Wildcats offense. Just six targets in 2023, but he caught the ball when he had the chance. Bates is a good-looking athlete with core strength to pop defenders on lead blocks. He plays with an edge in the run game. Although better control is needed, despite seeing few targets, he has the body control for smooth adjustments and strong hands to finish. Overall, Bates is a better pass catcher than his production would indicate. He has the size, speed, and tools to develop into a complementary wide tight end.
It sounds like Jeremy Ruckert's
I was just going to
history.
say
Yeah.
the same thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like Rucker, just less productive pass catching.
Well, Rucker was not that productive in Ohio State either, maybe more than Bates, but, he had all those fantastic wide receivers, so they weren't going to throw to him very much either.
Well,
Yeah, I'm interested in this guy. Yeah.
Bring him in, bring him up, bring in competition for Rucker. Again, we're a little sour on Rucker. He's got to show us a lot more. So I have a good feeling. All right, anything else you guys want to add before we close out this edition of Jets Rewind? And make sure you go to Schupak Sports where you'll get to see us. Okay. And anything else, Ray? You want to?
No, let's have a pool. Who's going to be the Jets practice squad quarterback? Because they have to have one, because they're going to be the scout team.
Martinez.
You think Martinez? Yeah. I guess the choice is Martinez, Paisley, or someone else. I'm going to say someone else.
How about you, Ray?
I'll take the other one. I want Martinez, but I think it'll end up being Peasley.
Well, Ralph, we should do a more interesting pool. Who signs a contract first, Trent Williams or Hassan Reddick?
Wow, that's a tough one.
That's Trent Williams is the left tackle from the 49ers who's also holding out.
Well, I saw a tweet this morning that said, Ayuk, they're still miles away, and the same thing with Trent Williams. So
Trent
keep
Williams,
your fingers crossed.
I think if the Jets work over the left tackle in game one.
I mean, Trent Williams is 36 years old.
Yes.
I mean, he's not going to sit out a year and come back at 37.
Yes. You notice that, guys, over the course of the years and the older we get, we see that offensive tackles, like quarterbacks, their lifespan keeps increasing.
They can be, yeah.
Which is incredible. Who was the other one? Peters?
Well, I remember from way back, I think Jackie Slater played until he was like 39 or 40. And I know that is a good position as far as longevity goes.
Very good.
Yeah.
Ralph, just refresh one more time, see if anything comes up as far as the signs. I just want to say for anyone that joined us late or whatever, the Jets signed Jake Hansen to the practice squad, Brandon Smith, and they picked up Brendan Bates, who we're all excited about. He's going to be the next John Mackey. And
I was just thinking maybe George Kittle. Let's not get out of
right. And Cole Laveo, who was from Hawaii,
Marty's favorite player. Yeah.
Good preseason. Anyone else that they picked up, Ralph?
The problem with Cole Laveo is that it's going to take him a year to get over the jet lag from coming out from Hawaii. I hear it. I can't find anyone right now, but
okay.
I had a feeling they'd get Validate back too.
Yeah, Validate also.
I don't know if Joe Douglas is going to try and get a late round pick for Izzy. I heard people saying, a 5th round running back who's 4th on your depth chart. I mean, those guys are a dime a dozen. Who's gonna buy him? But there might have been some teams out there that were looking to pick him before the Jets plucked him, and maybe they got a thing for him,
right?
And think so. I don't know. Maybe he gets a 7th round pick for him.
Yeah, we'll see. Anything else from any of you guys before we close this out? And we're heading into the regular season. I think a week from tomorrow night, I guess they open up.
I got something. I was watching this morning, every play of Leonard Taylor's against the Giants. And it's impressive. If you watch every play of any defensive lineman, they get washed and blocked a lot. No defensive lineman wins every time or even close to it. And he was terrific. But the thing that really popped out at me was Zaire Barnes. That guy is a good football player, man. And I am glad he's on the team. He's in an unfortunate position in that they only play two, and the two they have are Pro Bowlers. And they, knock on wood, don't get hurt. So he's going to really have to wait his chance. But I want them to hold on to this guy down the line, because in a year or two, I really think he's going to be a good starting football player.
Ralph, we thought that last year.
Yeah,
was
yeah.
terrific in the preseason. You know,
I looked up the stat. In 2 out of the 3 games, he led the team in tackles. The third game, he was about third. But I mean, he really has range, and
he's got great lateral motion.
Yeah, and he's got a real good nose for the ball. I'm really excited about his future.
I thought you were a Damian Sherwood fan, Ralph.
Damian Sherwood, yeah. No, Damian Sherwood and Tony Adams, the 2 Gold Dust twins.
The fan club. All right. Anything else, Mr. Ray Clifford? As you're on. Okay, we're going to close this out for Jets Rewind. I'm sure we'll be on sometime next week. For Ralph Sciarega, Ray Clifford, Marty Schupak, until next time.